Okay,
Let's boot it up, ladies and gentlemen.
press the start button. Just gotta see if it actually starts up in Tarvich. Yep, that looks good. Okay, we're live.
Hello,
Alright.
Internet.
Up in...
Howdy. And welcome back to Big Trouble in Little Emyprean. I never get tired of saying that name.
This is good. Alright, recap?
Who would like to do it?
I could, if we have no other volunteers.
Alright. I will go ahead and let you do that then.
Well, when last we left our investigation, the group was sent to question the individuals in the realm of murder victim Nordrun the Verdant, dragon pantheon member and master of Perseus, brother of Sir Percival, who guided us through the lodge, answered questions, provided us with video evidence, and elucidated the complex, tangled web of the pantheon's politics. We learned of several other individuals, Cloudstrider, who was in conflict with Perseus over debt and other such political nonsense. Lazy Lady Kuzunoa, a female fox vector, the fox god, who is another power player in the realm. And we also learned that there was a bit of a, not love triangle, but love affair going on between Nordrun and another. And that was another source of conflict, because his, shall we say, love interest was both of another caste, or not another caste, but another tier, and was also the servant of Lady Kuzunoa, if I am not mistaken.
That's actually pretty accurate. The person in question was more pursuant of him, while he himself was more interested in her mistress. The problem is that he had feelings at one point, and they had shared that at least long enough to have a child, and so hence all of the issues involved and the complexities.
And that child being a son who is currently away on pilgrimage to earn his stripes, as it were, and who we have elected so far to not inform of his father's death, because returning to the Empyrean at this time would violate the terms of the journey, and he would probably be facing exile. We return with all of this information to Lord Thoth to cross-reference it and search the library for more background, more context. We discovered a bunch about sort of the mythology that a lot of these individuals were personally drawing from. Found a connection with the theme of the murder, only to find out that the mother of Nordrun's son has been murdered. Dun dun dun!
Hide your kids.
How'd you get inside your wives? Everybody dying up in here.
Exactly. My boyfriend's contribution, ladies and gentlemen. But if I remember correctly, that is where we left off.
I would say so. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Anytime. I only work for minimum wage, so you get what you pay for.
Good grief.
But yeah, I think when we left off, we were sprinting out the door to get to the next murder location.
I believe
And
crime scene is the proper term.
murder location, crime scene. Yeah. Do I look like a cop?
Actually, yes.
Oh. Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
That's
okay.
precisely the problem.
In all fairness, don't want to claim that your character right now actually looks like a cop, but I and my character as well happen to know that he is one. So yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I think if I remember right, when we last left off, our main problem was, oh snap, we don't know how to get to the next crime scene.
Well, you just have to get over your male ego and stop and ask for directions.
This is one of those few times where that's literally the way to solve the problem.
Yeah, pretty
Hey,
much.
let's stop and ask for directions.
I distinctly remember that we were told that asking the guards for directions is an option.
Yep. Oh no, I'm not gonna ask the guard. I'm gonna ask the lateral crocodile that's in the Nile over there.
Are you sure that's a lateral and not an actual crocodile?
Let's walk up and ask, and get my face death rolled off. But you know.
Well, I can answer that for you because most crocodiles don't spit the fish back out and put them on the beach for somebody else to handle and clean.
Oh,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
fair.
Must be a really well-trained crocodile.
I was about to say, could be a hunting crocodile.
I'm assuming the market / Main Street right here has people in it.
Mm-hmm.
Any guards about?
Well, I mean, thing is, they don't really need guards for the most part. It's not like, yes, they have combat trained people, but they're not for peacekeeping for the most part.
Mostly militia in the case of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is they have division agents. It's like, oh snap, everything's gone wrong. Well, time to call up all of the people who can kick butt and take names.
Essentially. Oh, hey, by the way, we secretly had Rambo back at the parlor. Excuse me? Yeah, man, he runs a salon.
Yeah, there's no way you could. There's no way he could have such fabulous hair and not, know how to use some good product.
Well, also you can't have like life or death combat situation every day, and so basically, what I'm gonna say, he's gotta have some sort of day job.
Exactly. But yes, you are able to find someone who you can ask about that. Point out that the guides at the various doors tend to know what's going on, as there is someone posted to each of the doors, but most of that is for making sure that they keep track of who's going where and what. So it's more like they're toll booths, but you don't actually pay any tolls, unlike the rest of the Seoul, which is probably one of the weirdest things you've ever had to think about. You're actually spending no money being here. Not a single credit is being spent ever until you actually spend it.
I mean, on the upside, it means we're going to have very little overhead for this mission. But actually, so essentially they're checkpoints.
Mm-hmm. They're just checkpoints, them making sure they know who's going in and out.
Okay. I will ask one of the checkpoint guards then.
Mm-hmm.
Checkpoint personnel, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of... All I can say is we're acculturated to think of them as guards, even if they aren't.
Especially since Daxon is IRPF, so he's kind of used to more of a structured paramilitary presence everywhere he goes.
Which just isn't present here. I mean, There are paramilitary types, but that's an entirely different thing. All right. That said, they're able to point out the the direction you need to go. It is a bit windy, but following the proper symbology isn't all that difficult. It's one of the larger symbols, and you figure based upon what you can of the hierarchy system here in the Empyrean, the fact that hers is bigger than Thoth's probably means she has more influence.
Paid for better ad placement.
That or that. Or that. So, let's go ahead and... You're going to be on the left-hand side of the map.
Okay. Ooh, pretty.
Now let me see if I can find my thing.
There we are.
Where did I put that?
Whee!
There we are.
Very pretty.
Okay. This is distinctly different than the place you had been moving through. The gold and white halls of the Empyrean have become somewhat more familiar, but nothing ever seems to quite prepare you for entering another realm. The first thing you notice is the stone beneath your feet. It might be synthetic, it might not be, but it feels very real. Before you stands a massive gate, very clearly built not only for show, but for function. As you can see, a few vectors of various sizes, some of which would be too tall to actually fit through the door if it was of a more regular size. Others are much, much too small to actually open the doors on their own. Standing guard of a sort is a large bear. No larger than a standard vector, but he seems to be the one getting people who don't need to actually be here to turn back around and go back out the gate. There does seem to be quite a crowd of various vectors, though, and you can probably gather why.
Well, try and politely push through and see if I can't identify any sort of authorities. Get a point of contact for this place.
At some point, the bear stops you and asks you what your business here is.
I'm Officer Daxon Vagey. I was hired to help with the investigation into Nordrun the Verdant's death. You were just informed of the murder here.
The bear narrows his eyes for a minute, but looks over your companions, nods to himself, and waves you through.
Thank you.
Someone loudly protests this in the background. He tells them to shut up and move along. You are able to pass. Boop. Once you enter the garden proper, you can see it is quite expansive, and that there seems to be a crowd somewhat gathered over here by some very large rocks, trees. It smells of flowers everywhere, though you don't see all that many of them. It just seems to smell that way everywhere.
I guess it's a good thing the allergens are gone.
No kidding. I guess move towards the rocks.
Find some sort of official here.
As you approach, you see a small gathering. Most of them are dressed in robes of some manner or another, though a few seem to be in other costume. You get the distinct feeling that some of these people aren't from, quote-unquote, this realm. However, something you very clearly see is the large bird. It's massive. Easily as large as Nordrun. Perhaps larger. It's kind of hard to tell with its wings tucked in, and its head seems to be lowered closer to the standard vector height. You see him standing next to a wolf or coyote vector that seems vaguely familiar to you. The crowd isn't that large, but you'll notice that the pair of them seem to have similar modes of dress, aside from the other locals. You'll also notice that there seems to be what appears to be some sort of lip. Perhaps a jellyfish? You can't quite tell, but her skin seems translucent in places.
Okay.
Huh.
The large bird seems to be in conversation with a vixen stood not too far away, though you can't see her face as she's looking towards a large, what seems to be a temple of sorts.
Well, start approaching the most officious-looking members of the group and flash my credentials.
What credentials?
Well, my badge, state my name, and state that we were informed that there was a death, and that we're the investigators hired to investigate the death of Nordrun the Verdant.
I would probably at least lead with the fact that we're guests under Lord Thoth. Just so that way they don't ask why we're here.
That's fair.
Hey, we are IRPF. We are the Inner Ring Police Force. We are in the Inner Ring, so we are the police. Deal with it.
You have no jurisdiction.
We are in the inner ring, therefore we are the police. Get out the way. This is literally our jobs.
Yeah, I agree that's probably not the right approach.
Daxon is trying to be diplomatic. Trying.
No worries. Well, as you go over there, the large bird turns and looks over the crowd, and for the first time you actually get a good look at his eyes. They're glowing. Blue. It's unsettling, to say the least. You can't see any trace of purple. Of pupils anywhere. So he seems to be staring right through you.
Again with the glowing eyes.
Why does everybody have to have weird glowy eyes?
Why don't I have a camera?
There was a similar fashion trend on Mars, like 20 years ago. Get with the time, jeez.
At this, though, one of the various people in the gathering motions you forward or up towards the front where where the bird and the others are standing.
Okay, then.
As you approach, the vixen turns to you. And you are struck for how attractive she is. It's not just, oh hey, a sensual figure, no. In a more traditional sense. It's beauty. The kind that you would associate with a rare gem. She's small, she's graceful, and at every moment you are positively certain that she is in complete control of herself and her surroundings. Even though a bird easily 3 to 4 times her size stands beside her, she is the one in control here. At least that's the sort of air she seems to exude. The jellyfish stands aside to allow you to walk closer. The vixen finally addresses you. Her voice is quiet, but strong. I welcome you, guests, to my garden. I wish it was under better circumstances. I am Kuzunoha.
Daxon kind of gives a bowing, business-like nod,
Guillemond will do the same.
and he'll address her with a
respectful sort
polite-
of bow.
polite tone. Just say, Lady Kuzunoha, I understand that there has been a death here. As guests of Lord Thoth and investigators into the death of Nordrin the Verdant, we thought it prudent to investigate the scene.
I would say so. We have some reason to believe that this death is related. While the Verdant one never did requite her love, Shaelung truly cared for him. She's in the temple. Please, enter, see what you may glean from what you see there.
Daxon just nods. I'm assuming she indicates the temple to the south of us.
Mm-hmm. Now for some GM magic.
Holy crap, it's magic!
Oh. I'm gonna stand kind of at the entrance and look around to make sure I'm not gonna step on any evidence.
It seems that at the initial entrance, there doesn't seem to be any incriminating evidence of any kind or whatnot. The entrance is just an open doorway with some beads and silk draped over it. A few charms rustle gently in a very small wind. Okay.
Daxon will gonna take a step inside, look around.
The temple itself is not large, but it is sumptuous, and it smells heavily of incense of various kinds. What gets your attention is in the center of the room are bloodstains and the coiled body of what you first thought was a snake, but as you see its limbs, you realize is what would have been called in ancient times an eastern dragon. Her blood is smeared across the larger statue in the back of the temple, and specific symbology seems to be scrawled both on her and on certain statues. You're not sure which votives are meaning what. The blood is still fairly fresh. It happened recently.
I'm guessing you can probably smell it, huh?
Yeah, among other things that you can smell. The incense at first had covered it, but now that you are in the temple proper, it's very clear. The death not only was fairly recent, but it was in here.
Well, we're looking at an active crime scene then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start taking pictures with my towel case.
Daxon's going to take measures to make sure we aren't going to be contaminating anything.
Okay.
And I will attempt to speak to the people outside to ask if there were any cameras in or around the location.
Okay.
Good idea.
Anything to get away from the body for as long as I can while my stomach recovers.
Well, with that in mind, Dr. Reese is going to get to work and see what kinds of conclusions they can come up with.
Can my attempt to be to essentially avoid contamination and follow IRPA protocol essentially just aid him?
Yes, I will consider that as being helpful and give bonuses to rolls that I make on behalf of Reese because his player is not present.
Okay, cool.
Okay. That said, something you do notice about the symbols in question is it does seem to be text that you happened to spy on one of the books that you noticed. But again, you don't know what it is. It's all just fancy symbols. Now then, the questioning as for cameras and whatnot. Are you going to be addressing Kuzunoha directly or one of the attendants?
As I'm walking over, depending on who's paying attention, I don't think I should trouble Kuzunoha directly if one of her subordinates might know. You know, go up the food chain.
Mm-hmm. Nope. That makes perfect sense. Right then. Well, her attendants seem to be standing away from you or intentionally getting out of your way. So they seem to be trying to let you do whatever it is you're trying to do.
That's understandable. Still gonna have to ask one of them, though.
Okay.
Are any of them watching us?
Yeah. Quite a few of them are. The others are watching their lady, and some of the others are watching who the bear lets through. Everyone seems to be very distraught. A few are either still weeping or have just wept.
Okay. Well, I will address the group who is watching us as a group and request if any of them know either who is in charge of security for the area or who I might be able to speak to about potential camera footage, if any.
At this, they direct you towards the building back behind them. It's larger, but that's where they keep records. This away, if you'll zoom out the map real quick.
Okay, so up north?
Yep.
Alright, I guess that's where I'm heading.
However, they are quick to point out that there are no cameras in the temple itself. It is considered a sacred place, and as such, privacy is very important. Though the doors might be open to all, only those who are in it may hear what is spoken there.
Did I happen to notice any cameras coming in, like on the gatehouse or anything like that?
Not obviously so. They're probably hidden if they are present.
Kind of like the ones in the lodge that we last visited, huh?
Mm-hmm. If there are any there, they're probably either very private or only certain people can access them in the first place. Unfortunately, something you may have noticed by now, the Empyrean tends to be a bit of a security nightmare.
Yep, but Daxon is starting to get a headache when it comes to that sort of thing.
Admittedly, it's not his fault.
Yep, but we'll just have to do the best that we can. Even if we can't get video of the incident itself, maybe we might find similar footage, a similar character who made their way in.
Okay. So, Guimond, what are you doing?
That is a good question. I think Guimond is just going to follow Daxon for now. See if he can help him in any way.
That's fair.
Daxon is actually going to glance up at Guimond and say, "Hey, it's Guimond, right?
Yeah.
Tell you what, if you want to check out, look for blind spots, ways in. If we can construct a time frame of when this happened, we're gonna need to find out how this individual got in and out."
Actually, yeah, that is a good thing Guimond can do. Just finding like any methods of entry into the area that someone could have used.
That is fair. It will need a roll, but yes, you could totally do that.
Okay, what should I roll?
All right. So, you're looking for entrances, right?
Yes.
Let me see. Bop, 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 bop. I'm going to say it's a body perceived because you're visually looking for a thing. And do you mind opening the page for me if you would? That'd be lovely, thank you. I'm going to say... I'd say this might be a stealth roll or an engineering or sabotage, potentially.
I am good at stealth and sabotage, so probably stealth.
What do you guys think? I'm thinking probably sabotage or engineering, just because it has to do with more physical things.
My first instinct was sabotage.
Yeah. That's what I thought too. So I'm going to call that sabotage simply because it's looking for ways to get into a place that you're not supposed to be able to get into to do something you're not supposed to be able to do.
Okay. What's the difficulty?
I'm going to give it a 1. It's not that hard to find entrances to a place.
Okay.
At least not one as open and expansive as this. Technically, you could just climb the walls, but...
Would I get an equipment bonus on this at all?
I'm gonna say no. Just because, see, I don't think you're really using any, I don't think you're using any tools, are you?
Also, as a note, I'm assuming we're using the new experimental check thing.
I wasn't planning on it, but I think that might be the best way to go, simply because it's a little bit easier to use, truth be told.
And unless I'm very much mistaken, there are no tool bonuses anymore.
Yeah, if we were going to use that. So I think we might go ahead simply because it simplifies it a little bit. What we're talking about is in the documents section, so if you want to give that a little a quick looky-loo.
The check's 186.
That is correct.
Yeah, I have that open.
Awesome. That's simplified. I think I like it a little bit better, but we'll have to use a little bit more to get more familiar with it.
Yep, it is in fact a playtest.
Yeah, it's kind of the point. So I figured I wasn't sure if we were going to use it right now, but hey, you know what? Works for me. Yes, we're running a campaign, but we are also testing a thing. So it helps if we actually test the things every now and again.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, so the roll would be D12 plus D10 plus 1.
I believe so. Let me quick check. Yeah, because you have a good trait score in it, right? Or not trait bonus or whatever. What's the word? Yeah, you have a good trait score, right?
I mean, my body perceive is just 1, so
Oh, so that should be a D10, right?
What? Yeah. No, I mean, that's okay. We'll start as D10 and D10. Do you have a boon on in sabotage?
I do.
Okay, that should, I think, still. Wait, that's sickness. Just so that a boon increase.
Yeah,
Upgrade the stat die. Yeah, that's still
Yep,
the
it
same.
upgrades the stat die. So the stat die is up to a D12.
Yes. And what's your score in sabotage?
Just 1, so that would be D10 because it's difficulty 1.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then yeah, D12, D10 plus 1. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yep, that is correct. Awesome.
Hey, 20.
All right, you are successful, and not just successful, but fairly good at it too. It's
Wow,
very
look at
quickly. You very quickly figure out that the problem with getting in and out of here isn't that you can't. It's that it's too easy. They literally could have come from anywhere. The garden is surrounded by a wall. And unless the cameras catch you visually, which they may or may not, depending on their angles, the fact is, they could have entered the garden from any point. I mean, the thing is, the whole realm doesn't just kind of cut off at the ends here. The map only covers so much. But the whole of this central complex, surrounded by brick and a few other things, has a not crazy high wall, but a high enough wall that it would prevent any average vector from climbing. Just hopping over it like a chain link fence. But at the same time, you're dealing with a population of people who have very different sorts of body structures. So it'd be totally viable to expect quite a few of them to be able to just hop clean over it, let alone, scrambling over. On top of that, many of these buildings seem to be built in an older style with multiple entrances. The only exception to this seems to be the temple itself, which has one way in, one way out. But it does have high windows up closer to the roof, so you might be able to get in through there. You'd have to be a little bit small in some cases, but you could do it. And what with all of the trees and other pieces of the garden, there's plenty of places to hide, at least from Vector's eyes. You might not be able to hide from security cameras, but you won't get detected while you're there if you know what you're doing.
Gimon just kind of looks very frustrated at the incredible, just short-sighted lack of security here. Like, he looks visibly offended.
For once, Daxon is, instead of going to show like that mild terse frown of his, he just sort of gives Gimond a silent, sympathetic nod.
Gimon looks like he really just wants to say something that would be quite rude and potentially fatal, but he just keeps his mouth shut for now.
Oh, wisdom.
Although he does kind of mutter to Daxon, it's not a wonder someone got killed here, it's a wonder more people don't get killed here.
You won't hear any debate from me.
Encouraging!
This temple itself is a scared nightmare. Not only is it a high-traffic VIP area, but, well, line of sight with the walls is, you could sit in any one of these trees and just watch for hours.
As a side note, there's something we should look into that I hadn't thought of until now.
Hmm?
How many violent crimes are committed in this place?
A good question.
Yeah, definitely making a note to look into that as soon as the opportunity
Also,
is there.
something to look into would be the wording on that. How many violent crimes? What constitutes a violent crime here rather than just legal violence? Because at the lodge that we were at, you probably could get away with settling your disputes with ritual violence,
Good,
like duels and such.
good point. Good
But
point.
so that probably wouldn't classify as a crime. But
Whereas in the rest of Seoul, it most definitely would be considered a crime.
yeah, exactly. In
Because my thinking to the my initial response to the comment that I'm surprised no more people are killed here is maybe they don't really have very many murders here, so nobody thought it a big deal. But who knows?
that,
Who knows?
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We need to look into that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to find out who we could ask without upsetting their delicate feelings, but
I imagine that could be something we could check in with records or something like that.
If everything fails, just ask Sir Percival.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, the task at hand.
Yes.
Alright. So I've been quietly doing rolls in the background here, as well as doing some map making things, because I'm never not working. Reese has made a few conclusions. First of all, just based on what he can see here, something he has learned. This was a violent death. This was not a quiet, simple thing. It may have been done silently, quote unquote, or without notice, but it was violent. He did discover the weapon in question that killed her. It is a sort of spear, not like the one that was used to kill Nordren, though. Not more like a traditional lance type thing. This has a broad blade. It's long and curved on the end of it, and it was used to slice open her abdomen, lengthwise instead of crosswise. So her intestines would have fallen out, and there's show that they've been stuffed back in.
Ugh.
Ugh.
that's gross.
So she was eviscerated.
Exactly. And the weapon in question doesn't seem to bear any fingerprints he could find, but maybe you'll have better luck. It is still covered in her blood. There seems to be something, but he can't tell, coated on the edge itself. But that he'd have to actually go in and check check chemical composition to be able to tell you more. It's going to take more than just him doing a visual once-over and what few tools he has available to actually do anything with that.
Okay.
There might be someone on the Empyrean who has the equipment necessary to check the chemicals in question, but clearly there was something more to it than just simply, hey, poking them with this shiny blade and then cutting along the edges. Something else that he found is that her scales are stronger than standard skin. It's not quite comparable to a bulletproof vest, but something as simple as a knife definitely never would have penetrated her hide. So this had to have plenty of force to get through.
So we're looking at a fairly strong assailant.
Mm-hmm. And judging based upon some of the other things, she wasn't necessarily taken by surprise. But not so much. Essentially, her body shows signs of struggle, but before death, not after. So, while her body was definitely desecrated after the fact, like, obviously, the symbols painted on her, then her blood used to draw things on the statues and whatnot. This wasn't a fight to do so. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So likely the mutilation happened post-mortem or peri-mortem?
Post-mortem, probably. Either that or she was unconscious and dying. But yes, probably post-mortem. Again, he still needs a few more tools if he actually wants to make any better conclusions than what he's giving you now.
Right. I am going to the same individual that was questioned regarding security cameras. Can I go talk to them regarding a medical facility where we could perform a more detailed autopsy?
When the word autopsy is mentioned, they give you the strangest look.
Mm.
And for the first time, the bird, very large bird, actually speaks. I'm afraid the desecration you see you seek will not happen. We must first judge her wishes.
And with all due respect, what were her wishes?
Kuzunoha interrupts. We are retrieving her will, as it were. They should be here shortly. Unfortunately, that is our way. The desires of the dead, since we very rarely have such, are held paramount over any of the troubles or desires of the living.
Oh man, you gotta love the fundies, don't ya?
Yeah, he doesn't object, but there's very much a very mild, like, just kind of thoughtful frown on Daxon's face. I understand. It is my professional opinion that bringing the perpetrator to justice would require uncontaminated analysis of the individual in question and the crime scene. However, he just sort of trails off and kind of gestures with a hand, kind of, a little glumly, and finally nods.
We understand your concern. Now, if you will excuse me, my lady Kuzunoha, I'm afraid I have things I must attend to. Of course, Dark Sky. We will see you again, I suppose. Indeed.
Oh, crud.
For as he turns around and leaves, he has a brief glare at what you thought was the jellyfish blip before she moves out of his way. Cloud Strider promptly follows him.
Quick question. I didn't catch it if you mentioned it earlier. Was he like a giant, basically lateral bird, or?
Yes,
Okay.
a literal eagle type looking thing, but the plumage, the feathers, everything was not quote unquote typical. So placing an actual species on him would be very difficult.
Heckin' big birdo.
Really heckin' big birdo. You're closer towards the top of the Empyrean, where gravity is a little bit lighter. It's not such a huge difference that it causes, the soup, as it were, but it's definitely a noticeable thing that you see more and more larger vectors than you did down where Thoth was. Thoth was probably one of the biggest ones down there.
Okay.
And Nordren most definitely was probably the single biggest thing. Just because, the sheer size of them would create problems with gravity. You're going to guess that Dark Sky was probably pushing it coming down here, though, just based on his scale.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's actually all that far, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Quote-unquote higher you go in the Imperium, the literally higher you go and the further away from the Empyrean's quote-unquote gravitational center. It's not really how that works, but that's how they've sort of programmed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really, a feat of engineering, but who the hell's been doing that is the question you gotta ask yourself. Why would you do that?
They can afford the fancy gravity generators here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so Yusik.
Finally. Yes.
Over here. A cog catches your attention and guides you over through the building.
Oh.
You briefly mentioned that you were wanting to go into security. This is the place. This is more or less their guards hall. There's supposed to be more stuff in it, but again, GM magic can only go so far at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That said, off to this side is an information center and kind of where the other things are. The central server is over through the other halls, but that's the room that you're going to actually get the information you're looking for from.
Alrighty then. Is there anybody around to help, or is there any security personnel around to help? I mean,
there are a few people. What's the word? They are specifically dressed in an odd sort of armor. It's lacquered and painted brightly. Mostly reds, though you do see a few yellows and greens here and there.
thematics. Got it.
Aesthetics. It's like
Yeah.
what seems to be the most important thing that anybody here cares about.
I'm just asking because I'm not so good with computers.
Do we have somebody who's really good with computers?
Guimon knows how to break computers and hack into them.
Yeah, which is not really what we really need right now. Anyway, so yes, I will chat up the security staff asking where they have cameras located, what they can see, and if they have any footage of the areas around the hut. prior to.
Quick question. Using computers is operate, right?
I believe so, yes.
I do have
Yeah,
a
it's
boon.
mind operate rather than physical operate.
I do have a boon in operate, so Gimon could give it a try.
No, you're all the way over there. You stayed behind at the scene, remember?
Hmm.
That's right.
So all of this is happening simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. So this isn't just, it's all happening at once. It's just because of the way gaming works, it has to happen in order rather than actually at the same time. Like a movie.
Are you telling me you're not so good at multitasking that you can't take care of all of us at the same time? I am disappointed.
Yeah, I will allow you to be disappointed.
Rage is human, not computer. Don't yell.
Please yell. It gives me an excuse to yell back.
Oh.
All right. So instead of rolling for discovering it for yourself, I'd actually like to have you roll a social thing so you communicate the questions properly, so you actually get the information you're looking for. Does that sound fair?
Yes. What is the difficulty?
This isn't all that hard. You are just simply asking the questions. I'm gonna say it's a 1.
Okay, and I have a 1. So that's a D10. Would this be exert or perception in community? Because if it's exert, I have a tool bonus.
We aren't using the tools, remember?
But it's part of one of my perks.
We're gonna have to rewrite. I believe Seb mentioned that he's probably gonna have to work with some of those. So I'll call it good and say you still get the bonus anyway. For now, just because it is part of your perk, so.
Okay,
Anyway.
well, it says it's based up to the storyteller to determine whether they're applicable. It's charisma and appearance.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to tell you that no, that doesn't really actually help in this situation, because what you're trying to do is be clear and concise and actually communicate information, but you're trying to communicate it to somebody who may or may not actually be interested in helping you. Think of it as you're trying to get a thing from a neutral party. Okay, well, you're not quite able to convince them to give you all the information that you want. You think if you get permission from the Lady Kuzunoha to actually ask for all this, that'll probably leverage it and they'll give you everything that you need. So they don't tell you where the cameras are, and they don't give you access to the footage, but they confirm that yes, it's present, and that they did catch a few things.
Nusik is going to pinch what I guess is the equivalent of the bridge of his nose, sigh, and then walk back out to get permission.
Mom.
Mom, they're making it hard for me to do my job.
Mom, Big Brother's not letting me use the computer.
More like, Mom, Big Brother isn't writing my report for me.
Yeah.
All right. So you are at Kuzunoha apologizes once you get to her and says she should have told them ahead of time.
That's fine. Is there some sort of code word I can say that will convince them otherwise?
Oh no, she simply states, I will let them know. And waves to one of the attendants, says, escort him, and tell them to not obstruct him in any way.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick.
Yeah, no worries. Essentially. The attendant is very clearly not happy about this, but, you know, I don't think anybody's happy at the moment.
No, nobody's happy. They're not happy their people are dying. They're not happy outsiders are here. And I'm not happy I have to work a murder investigation.
2 of them, technically.
Right. So now we've got a serial killer. This is just great. How could this possibly get any worse?
Don't say that.
You know you're not supposed to say that.
I believe it has to be 3 or 4 murders to be considered a serial killing.
Yeah, this is a spree so far.
Yeah, just know. The patterns are too damn similar for this to be a quote-unquote spree.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I always remember that line in Castle, I think. If there's 1 murder, you look for motive. If there's 2, you look for a connection. If there's 3, you look for a crazy person.
Yeah, but except, if you look for a crazy person, the whole station is going to light up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering why there's a cog here, but I'm not going to push into it because then it's just a wormhole I don't really need to deal with.
Some questions I don't want to know the answers to.
Right. So the footage. What do they got?
All right. Well, one of the things you find is very interesting. Remember that cloaked figure? They have a clip of it. Again. It seems to have scaled one of the walls fairly quickly and expertly, so either they've done it before, or they're just physically strong enough to do it anyway. Like one of those folks who could just jump real high. What's that quote from Samurai Jack? No. You can fly? No. Jump good.
Yes.
So somebody who's either physically able or just a good climber in general. Either way, they slink over the wall. You lose them in the trees back on the south side by the pond. But they show up again as they come in through the main entrance of the temple. This is, of course, after She Lung had already been in there for a while.
Did I see them carrying the weapon on them on the way in?
No, you couldn't say anything they were holding. You can tell, though, that they're taller than the average Vector, but they are bipedal. So that rules out any of the laterals, simply from a visual standpoint. Unless they're in some kind of, suit of sorts. But then that would mean you're dealing with a smaller lateral and not a bigger one. So
Turns out it's a lateral budgie.
The budgie of fury.
I'm going to assume that the cameras can't see inside the temple for reasons. Let's see.
Correct.
So on the way out, how do they leave?
They leave the same way they entered. They hop over the wall where the cameras don't see and are gone. You can't tell which entrance they use because there is more than one door to the realm here. But anybody would have been able to point out which door they went through.
For reference, because it matters. Were they climbing the wall quicker on the way out than on the way in?
It doesn't seem to be any faster or slower. So, no. Not faster. Not quicker.
Which means they're strong enough that the weapon was not an encumbrance at all.
If it was on them at all.
Well, dang it. Stop landing ideas like that.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'll ask them to transfer a copy of the footage to my toggle, and then I'm going to return to the rest of the group. Still annoyed and now extensively worried.
All right. At this point, Guimond, you should have been done with Guimond, you should have been done with your stuff. I keep saying Guimond, and I don't like that. I'm getting mad at myself.
I mean, it looks like that's how it should be pronounced, but
But it's Guimond, and I know better than that.
Mall. It is Guimond.
Guimond. It's French. How dare you? Good grief. I'm gonna get somebody pissed. Someone somewhere is mad at me for making a French joke. Alright. So Nusig has returned. You've got some more information on the death itself. And it looks like you're probably going to have to talk to Henry again, or somebody about the symbols used here.
Because I'm betting they're different, huh?
You betcha, they are not runes. They're actually not all that different from some of the symbols that you see that are etched onto the nameplates below the statues. At least you think they're nameplates. They might be something else. It's hard to tell.
In other words, this isn't a copycat. It's not a sign. Somebody bothered to do all the research and practice their penmanship.
Actually, like that is actually a decent lead as someone who understands this sort of linguistics and calligraphy.
Or they have a really good stamp.
Actually, that is a question. Would I be able to tell if it has been stenciled, stamped, or handwritten?
That would be something that you'd have to do a check for. But yes,
Okay.
you might be able to do that.
I would love to do a check for that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish what you were going to say.
I would like to trace back what I saw in the video and go to where they climbed the wall.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
That would be a good thing to tap Guimond for help with, too.
Oh, yeah.
Why, are you an expert climber?
I would say they're troublemaker.
Because Guimond is a lemur, and aren't lemurs good at climbing?
That's racist.
Species.
I mean, I do have a 1 in athletics and 2 in body exert, so...
Yep, there you go.
Speaking of out of character, I think it's more because he's an expert breaking into things.
Fine.
Yeah.
He's a burglar.
He's a spyglass person. He does all sorts of illegal shit.
Actually, that is a good question. How difficult would it be for Guimond to scale that wall?
That would be a difficulty too, and it's not because it's so high, it's because it is a flat brick surface. While it looks nice and fancy, and it's been artificially aged, you can tell that the aging is artificial, and it doesn't actually make it offer any more purchase.
Well, I was gonna say that I was gonna originally check the wall to see if there were like indents from hand-holding or some kind of climbing tool. But I guess having somebody to scale the wall for a time comparison wouldn't be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. That could work too. So if you want to go ahead and have them do that, I will show you where it's at. If the mouse will play nice for a minute. There we go. Ugh, that was weird. Okay. So if you head to the southern portion of the map. Bong. Right over here is where they scaled.
Yeah, that's way down there.
Mm-hmm. As you can tell, though, it would be easy to use the trees nearby to break the camera's view of yourself and approach the temple more stealthily.
And materialize from the tree line all mysteriously.
almost like a ninja.
Almost. Now then, I'm gonna need that. It's an athletics roll with body exert.
Okay.
Body exert. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that. It's like that's right there, dingus.
And you can confirm there's no damage to the wall.
It's pretty easy to tell. There doesn't seem to have been any damage. You'd have to actually make a roll for a close inspection, but from what you can tell, nothing's been messed with. Nothing. It doesn't look like anybody's driven a pike or something through it.
That will be an 18 to climb that wall.
Okay, you're able to do it. It's a little bit difficult, but you're able to do it. Something you do notice, though, is that while the purchase isn't very strong, it's very regular, in part because of the way the bricks are put into the wall. It's not that it has a lot of purchase, so you can see how someone who's not familiar with climbing would definitely get hurt. But anyone who's reasonably athletic and knew at least a little bit about how not to put your fingers on a thing would easily be able to do this. So anyone who does rock climbing on the regular, or at least has done it more than a couple times, would easily be able to do this.
So we know it was either a Spyglass or a Pulse employee then.
No, we don't know that. It could be a local. What we do know is that they're physically fit and they're very fit.
How high is the wall again?
It's taller than you and Nusig if you stood on each other's shoulders.
So, like 12 to 14 feet?
Correct.
I would ask, how did his climbing time compare to the one from the video?
It was slower, but not by like a massive margin. So either the person climbing in question was being careful and methodical to make sure they didn't make too much noise, or they're just not super used to the climbing. It's kind of hard to tell. Either way, you're very certain that with a little bit of practice, Geemond could probably beat the time. But the fact that the person in question was also larger than Geemond might make that a little bit harder to tell for accuracy.
Well, in either case, it kind of puts a little bit of a damper on the idea of sticky fingers.
Sticky fingers?
You know, that reclamation.
Oh yes. This seems to be the bit more of a traditional sort of climbing, but you never know.
You never know. But I would like to make the roll to inspect the wall for some kind of clue.
Yeah. Okay. You're gonna do a body perceive engineering. Geemond?
Yes.
You can make that roll as well, if you should like. I will give you a +1 on that if you do, because you actually climbed the thing.
Okay, I have a fault in engineering, and what would be the difficulty?
This is going to be a 1, I would say, just because it's not that hard to visually confirm. There's literally just a wall with bricks.
Okay.
Which to it, it'd be pretty obvious. Go ahead.
I gotta go AFK. Should be just a minute.
Okay.
I am probably not going to pass this.
I didn't have a chance at all, so don't worry about it.
Despite your best efforts, neither of you can tell if it was damaged or not. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. A wall is a wall is a wall. It's made of brick, which is a little weird in and of itself, but then again, it might be a brick layer on top of metal or something. You know, it's not like they don't use asphalt and brick in regular Soul. It just seems a little bit off considering how it's been aged. Whether that's natural or artificial, you're going to go with artificial probably. But again, aesthetics seem to reign supreme here.
I would request that while Gimon is up there to check along the other side and see what entrances are nearby.
Yeah, Gimon can do that. He will go ahead and walk over to the other side of the wall, just look around, see if he can see anything interesting on the other side.
I would need a body perceive for that. Let's see, what would the other thing be? A body perceive.
Yeah, there's not really a notice skill, is there?
There isn't, actually. It's just straight up body perceive.
Yeah.
I remember Sev talking about it specifically. If I remember right, it's like you can. I think there is a justification for saying like body perceive stealth, but I'm not sure. If I remember right, Sev talked about something to the extent of stealth was very much weighted against people trying to sneak because you only have to screw it up once, and it was just too hard to sneak for an extended period without guaranteed failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said that it was just too difficult. That's why he took out search and everything.
Maybe body perceive stealth to see how would I sneak up to this wall? I don't know.
That might be a good way to approach it. The other thing that I was going to say is it kind of depends on what you're looking for. So what are you looking for? Are you looking for a path that you would take to sneak up to the wall? Are you looking for any irregularities? Are you looking for somewhere that they might be able to, where's the door at? What are you looking for?
Basically looking for a path to the wall that is fairly obstructed and is not going to get me noticed. Just at a casual glance, what is beyond the wall?
As your casual glance, there is a doorway of the kind that you're used to thinking of as the gate now. Those are the entrances with the various symbols that guide you along and kind of tell you where you're supposed to go. There doesn't seem to be anybody at that particular one at the moment. Let's see. Trying to think. There does seem to be brickwork, a road, but not really a road, so a sort of path that kind of offsets it. And there's a few bushes here and there, like the kind that you'd put next to a walkway of sorts, or like a street in a nice urban neighborhood.
Okay. As far as making the check goes, I guess, yeah, just body perceive stealth to see how would I sneak up to this wall.
Okay, go ahead and make those rolls if you would. I'm going to say it's a difficulty of 2 just because it is kind of an open pathway of sorts, but there might be a way to get around.
Okay. That is not the right syntax. Okay, 16.
Okay. Well, you don't necessarily find a path to get up to the wall unnoticed. You do notice that there's a couple metal plates every so many meters along the pathway.
Interesting. What do they look like? Their purpose would be?
It's kind of hard to tell. You might need to get a little bit closer to tell exactly what they are.
Okay. In that case, I will just shimmy on down the other side and go take a look at one.
Okay, for expediency's sake, I'm not going to make you roll again. I'm just going to say, because you've succeeded in climbing the wall, you can climb it fairly easily again, should you need to.
Sounds good.
Alright. With that in mind, you are able to shimmy on down. Nusig,
Yeah.
Giemund has left your sight and has gone down the other side of the wall.
And that was not part of the plan.
Giemund, you might want to tell him what you're doing.
Yeah, actually, yes. Retroactively, before he does that, he's going to tell Nusig, hey, I see something interesting here on the other side. I'll be right back.
What do you mean by interesting?
Well, it's some weird metal plates, and I don't know what they do, and I want to find out what they do.
Just be careful. I can't exactly get over there, you know.
I mean, I'll be fine, unless the killer's over here, and then I'll just scream really loud.
Well, if the killer's over there, nobody's going to be able to help you.
Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be right back.
Alright. As you approach the plates, their purpose seems to be much more clear. They're sort of ventilation shaft, but they're very large. It does make sense, though. The smell of flowers seems to be coming from one of them, and the others just seem to be pushing air. They might serve other purpose, but
Okay.
the grating in them is very different. I would need you to do a body perceive check, just a base check.
Okay,
No bonuses, no anything. I just want your base roll for me, if you would.
so that would just be D10 plus body perceive.
Correct.
Okay.
Alright. And I'm getting a little old school in the way I'm adapting this. Okay. You notice something odd about one of the grates, but you can't put your finger on it. Maybe you should ask somebody else to come take a looky-loo.
Yeah. Actually, Gimon will go ahead and scale back up the wall, and then he'll just, scale back down the other side to rejoin Nusig, and he'll say, I found some weird grates on the other side. I think it's part of this realm's ventilation system. We might want to bring everyone over to take a look at it.
Okay, is there a way to get there that doesn't require climbing a wall?
We could go around.
Got it. Which way? My left or my right?
Your left through the main gate.
No, I'm asking him, relative to where I'm facing.
We can just go out the way we came and go around, I think.
On your right, you dingus.
Thank you. So, yep, time to stroll back through the woods like a ghost and grab the rest of the team who probably don't, they're probably done by now.
Well, they don't seem to have had anything that they're doing at the moment.
I actually would like. There's something I would like to do.
Oh, okay. Inform me, sir.
Well, I would like to check the temple itself for any clues, and anything that might help, maybe the perpetrator dropped something, left any sort of traces, anything really.
Okay, so you're going to be doing a body perceive then?
Yes.
Alright. Let's see. A body perceive. I'm gonna say logic or protocol could also be used here. Simply, hey, is it out of place?
I do have protocol, so I would like to do that.
And so the protocol is going to be on the opinion that is that this isn't normally here, and that's not normally where people would put things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Based upon the habits of that have been stated by the people you've talked to.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay.
What would the difficulty be?
I'm gonna say 2. You're gonna have to really look. I mean, the fact that there's blood everywhere and whatnot isn't helping things.
Okay, so that should be AD12 because I have a boon, D8 because my protocol is only 1, plus 1 for my body perceive. And this should be it. Oh, that was horrible.
You are not able to find anything.
All right.
At least nothing that's any more out of place than the blood on the walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just assumed that the blood on the wall isn't usually here. Otherwise, this temple had a vastly different purpose than I would have thought. Okay. There is actually one other thing I would like to do.
Human sacrifices, cats and dogs live together, and mass hysteria.
I do not want to do human sacrifices, mostly because humans are really hard to come by in this setting. No, I would like to go outside and ask one of the people, probably just one of the nearest attendants who look like they might be available to answer a question.
Okay.
If there was anybody around who might be able to identify these symbols.
Oh, yes, certainly. They bring one of the others dressed in what you're going to assume is the Kuzunoha style robes. And the vector in question says, yes, I can read them for the most part. My pronunciation is off, but I understand it.
Yes. I know this must be difficult, but it would help us immensely if we knew what they meant.
Do I have to go in there?
I have taken plenty of pictures.
All right, give me a second.
So how's everybody else doing?
Rather well.
I'm enjoying the post-semester life for as long as I have it.
It's my mom's birthday today, and I'm going to be heading back to my hometown later.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah. So that'll be cool.
I forgot.
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
I had a phone call.
Oh yeah, that is important. Oh, I forgot to mention I might be getting one of those within the next few hours, just as an early warning.
Oh no, we're in the next in about a half an hour or so. We're gonna call it good.
Okay.
Because that's normally when we'd be closing out, and I'd like us to get into a habit of shutting down at a regular time.
Right, that makes sense.
That is fair. Okay, back to the conversation. I am gonna pull out my toggle and says, no, you do not have to get in. I took pictures. You can just look at them here. And
like open, unlock the toggle. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, I'm going to try and find find some pictures that like do not show the body. So
There are a few that don't, but the symbols are still there.
Mhm.
The three things that seem to be consistent here, and they point this out as they look at it, is that they're using the Tomo.
Mhm.
They're a sort of thunder god symbolism. Really storms, like hurricanes and things, it's very, very old. From the human era.
Mhm.
You'd have to ask somebody who's a little bit more familiar with it to get more specific than that. It's used occasionally here in the garden.
Mhm.
Usually on drums. I don't know why.
Okay. Could you point me to somebody who would be able to tell me this?
with a very chagrined face, they say, well, there might be someone here, but I don't think they're actually here in the realm at the moment. But I know that Thoth's library would probably have more on that. Lord Thoth is the repository for almost anything and everything that we don't have on hand.
Of course. That makes perfect sense.
I do apologize. As for these symbols, they say a name.
What name is that?
Susano. I don't know what it means, though.
Okay. I'm gonna note that down. May I ask how that is spelled?
Susanoo.
Almost got it right. All right. Thank you very much.
No worries. Hopefully this gets all sorted. It's a terrible thing.
Yes, we will definitely do our best. Actually, one more question. If you can tell me, did Shillong spend a lot of time in this temple? Was this a regular thing, or was it unusual that she was in there?
Shaylung was one of the more religious members of our society here. While we don't always necessarily feel the same way, Our Lady, our good lady, she makes sure all of us, our needs are met. I should hope to be so gracious one day.
Mm-hmm.
Shaylung regularly visits the temple. Once every 10 days. Usually spent at least 2 hours or more, depending on, I guess on certain factors I don't know about. But, it was never really my business. We all just sort of knew and noticed.
Okay.
She was never really a warrior. She was more of a people person. She was able to bring out the best in most of us, much like Our Lady.
Okay, I understand. That is very good to know. Thank you. I think that is all, at least for now. Unless you happen to know anybody who is who knew her more personally, you know, so a friend maybe, someone we could talk to.
A friend of Shaylung?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. Shay tended to dote upon her son. It's part of the reason why he was sent so young and so quickly to his own quest. She spent too much time with him. at least as far as the council was concerned. This is all, of course, something you should never bring up to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a sore spot.
I see.
But I think it's because she so very badly wanted to be with the Lord Nordrun and earn his respect. She was taking, I guess, lessons, if you want to call it that, from Sir Perseus, as well as occasionally from Sir Percival.
Oh.
Interesting.
See, the thing is both of them had trained with their predecessor. He had been under Lord Thoth for many years, Sir Lancelot. He died, though. It was very tragic. Years ago. Before Sir Percival, he was what everyone looked to as the perfect knight. And for many years, everyone thought that Shay Long and Sir Lancelot would, you know, be the ones who got together. But as it turns out, the reason why they had gotten so close is because Sir Lancelot had connections with Sir Nordrun at the time. And she was, well, I wouldn't say using him, but she wanted that close relationship so that when she made her proposals to Lord Nordrun, they'd be more positively received.
I see.
They were still very good friends. So I suppose if you'd speak to anyone, it'd be them. She does have a few other friends here. Let's see. Nobun-san, as he likes to call himself. Nobun is more of a warrior, but very much is tied up in the idea of courtesy and honor, almost to a fault. Nobun-san isn't here at the moment, but he should be here shortly. The Lady Kuzunoha has called for him.
Ah, that is very good. Yes, we will definitely talk to him.
The only other person I could think of who had any close relationship at all with her, Son Goku. He might want to talk to him, but it might be more trouble than it's worth.
Why is that, if I may ask?
He offended Our Lady. He used to be one of her closest servants, but his mouth is often too big for his head.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I quite understand.
We all liked him. We still do, many of us. It's just, until he properly apologizes to Our Lady, he's not welcome here.
All right. Yeah, I think that is all for now. Thank you again. You were most helpful.
You're most welcome.
Okay.
All right.
And well, with that, I return to the rest of the group.
Okay. Well, you have some more information.
Mm-hmm. I will, of course, relay the information I have just acquired.
Okay, so now you guys have some have a thing to go inspect. You also have some questions you need to ask yourselves. But first, let's go ahead and go look at those vents, shall we?
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to have each of you do that base perceive, but I am going to give you a bonus on the actual roll. So if you'd be so kind as to do that.
Should I go ahead and make another one, or just everybody else?
With new eyes, I will allow it.
Okay. And also to answer Newsig's question, how heavy is the murder weapon, approximately?
The murder weapon in question is actually surprisingly light. You would have thought, judging by its size, especially the blade, that it would have been much heavier.
So we're not, like, obviously the person who wielded it is, like, decently fit, but we're not looking for someone... The build of the weapon does not, like, necessitate a macro or something like that.
No, while that
Okay.
sort of strength might be necessitated by the, status of Shailung's scales.
Right. All right.
I'm thinking
Tyler.
just as an aside regarding the murder weapon. I didn't ask that because I didn't think of it until it was mentioned in chat, so I didn't think it was appropriate to insert the question there. I'm thinking the weapon might actually be from around here. That the murderer didn't bring the weapon with him, but used one that was, on hand.
Possible. All right. So for perceiving, what are we rolling?
Just the base body perceived die.
Okay.
And you said we would get a bonus to that?
That is correct.
Which is what would be just like a... I'm not sure what I'd roll. I have 1 in body perceive.
Just a D10.
Just a D10. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not setting a difficult cut. I'm doing this a little bit old school style, okay?
Cool.
Just work with me here.
What is the bonus?
That would be a +1. Okay. However, it looks like Flicktarn. You have done us a good thing.
Yay.
By
I
rolling
did a good thing.
By rolling a nat 10, you see it. As you're looking at the various grates, you notice that one of them has been forced. Specifically from the inside and on the outside.
Interesting.
It also looks like if you got a little bit of leverage, you could probably pull it up yourself.
I will make sure I'm not going to disturb any, like, paw print or fingerprint evidence, and try and do so.
Okay. For that, I'm going to need a body exert athletics.
I have a fault, but 1 rank in that, and I have 1 in body exert.
It is a difficulty of 1 task.
Okay, so I would get a D8, a D10, and 1.
Correct.
Eight. Oh boy.
You are unsuccessful in lifting it. It's heavier than it looks.
Okay. This can't just be me.
Can Gimon go ahead and take a crack at it?
Mm-hmm. If you should like.
Okay, so body exert, I have 1 in athletics, so D10, D10 plus 1.
Go ahead.
Hey, there we go.
Alright, there you go. It takes a second, and you notice that it's jammed on the one side. You remove the offending stone, and it slides up much more easily. Sure enough, it's pretty heavy, but it comes up. And you can also see what looks to be a ladder.
Huh. Maybe leads to a sewer system or ventilation ducts or something like that.
You're gonna guess that this is probably the quote-unquote maintenance vent. The one that engineering uses when there's some kind of problem in the system and they have to actually physically go in there to look. It also looks large enough to fit a standard vector. Maybe even want someone a little bit bigger. Probably they had to build it to that size because some of the vectors here aren't, well, let's face it, normal sized. Either
Right.
that, or whoever built this section of the facility is a huge turd.
Or a huge squirrel?
So odds are the killer came in and then left through here, maybe.
All they'd need to know is a little bit of the engineering of the area, and probably. No one at the gates would be able to know that they're there. Someone in engineering might, but...
Gimon will look at Daxon and Cecily and say, well, you're the detectives here. What do you make of this?
Are there any tool marks on the vents, as in like they've been forced by somebody with like a pry bar, or does you said the vents look forced? Was it done by hand?
This one in question, the reason it looked forced is because there seems to be damage along the edging of the stone nearby. And it doesn't look like it's the kind of thing that you'd see with a pry bar.
Okay, so someone of immense strength ripped this out.
Not necessarily ripped, because there are hinges, but if you take another look, you'll notice that the locking mechanism on the hinge has been broken. This allows it to
okay.
be physically lifted much faster. It had just been stuck. You're going to guess that the stone was probably shoved in there between the grating itself on purpose, just because it doesn't look like the other brickwork nearby.
Well, I think it's safe to assume that our murderer came in here by the looks of it. That would get him into this place without having to go past guards. We should probably check with engineering about that.
Most definitely.
We were going to talk with what's his name again, the huge squirrel again anyway. So
Chief of Engineering Radatusk. I mean, somebody else has to make these weapons.
Now,
well,
you
they
have
should have a
yourselves...
3D printer around here. That shouldn't be a problem.
Now then, if I might, I present to you 3 options.
Yes.
The first one, stay here and wait for Nobun, as he knew the victim more intimately. And that might shed some light on why she died. You could probably put some things together yourself, but that might be a good source of information.
Definitely.
You can return to Thoth's library and see what they turn up. Or, maybe contact Henry on your way to one of the other 2, since you still have his contact information.
Oh, right.
Question: do people around here have toggles and numbers that we can like reach?
Some of them do. Something that you found that deeply disturbed you was that plenty of them don't.
Weird. Ugh.
Savages.
Imagine that. Imagine that, having no access to the soul net except at the specific terminals in any given realm.
How do these people live? Wow.
This is worse than boot camp.
Oh, I mean,
right? At least at the
All-
academy, they let us keep our toggles.
Yeah.
I love that of all the things that disturb your characters, is the fact that none of these people really carry smartphones is what gets to you.
I will posit that we should wait for Nobu, since before we did ask that Henry, was it?
Yeah, he goes
Yeah.
by Hank.
We did ask him to look into any mythology relating to the title of Shaylin, or of her mythological name, and then to send it to us when he found it. So I suggest we wait for Nobu, wait for Henry, and compare notes, and see just how much it lines up.
So those are your options. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, wasn't there a third option?
Yes, go to Radadoskar directly.
Okay.
So Radadosk, wait for Nobu, or go to Thoth. You don't have to go to Thoth because you could technically contact Henry directly and see if he could help you. But it's one of those things where it might take a second. It might take longer by doing that than it would if you went and did it yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What I would say is we wait here for Nobu.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, while we wait, we can contact Henry, since he's one of the few normal people here who have a toggle.
Yeah.
And just send him pictures of the symbols. Ask him to look into that. And I mean, then we can have the talk with Nobun. Maybe by the time we're done with that, we already have an answer from Henry. If not, we go to Radadosk, or I always want to say Radadoskar, but I know you did the name differently. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's intentionally annoying for people who know the route.
And or rather, after the talk with Nolan, we can decide if we go to the library or go to Radadosk.
I think that's a fine plan, personally.
We should also prep the weapon for secure transports. That way, it doesn't get damaged or evidence corrupted.
Yeah.
That is a good idea. There was the idea of there was some residue or something on the blade, right?
Yeah, and also since we can't autopsy the body, at least we can keep the weapon.
And try and take detailed accounts of injuries and stuff without like cutting into it. Maybe take some chemical samples to see if there was any poison on the blade, air poison in the wound, anything like that.
That is a good idea. Do as much as we can. Well, we still can before they, whatever they're gonna do with the body. I believe they were waiting for her will.
They are, yeah. But there's one thing that's been made clear. Every single murder, both murders so far, have been made with different weapons of different styles.
Yep.
I like to point out, though, that they do have a similarity.
Yes.
Point.
While they are weapons of different styles, they are within the same quote-unquote family of weapons.
Mm-hmm. And they were used to slay the same quote-unquote family of creatures.
I'd say enough to have it be possibly the same MO and same group, if not the same individual.
True, but another thing is we have to try and, solve this before there's a third, because if the third victim is also a dragon,
You mean we're kind of running out of dragons here?
this is the Empyrean.
Not
I'm
wrong.
sure there's more than 3.
I mean, we know of at least one more. The boss here. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry. But they're very big on individualism, so I don't think there's that many dragons.
Or at least that many identical dragons.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways to be a dragon that,
Yeah, fair.
Okay, give me one moment.
Mm-hmm.
The joy and frustration of having to fix things when you thought you did a thing and you didn't do it. Okay. So, as you're gathered out of the vent, one of the attendants runs over to you from across the way, from around the corner, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
and gets your attention and says that Nobun has arrived. Now, if I could just fix that. Good. Ugh. Oh dear.
oh dearie dear.
There we go. I fixed it. Sorry about that, friends.
We forgive you.
We forgive you for now.
Ugh, the lag is real, my dudes. I'm so sorry.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
There we are. Finally, yeet! Test what little patience I have, would you? Okay, so if you will go ahead and move your tokens back into the main area, we'll be good. Over by just north of the rocks.
Okay.
Boop.
Okay. I apologize in advance if it comes in a lot bigger than it's supposed to be.
Turns out it's a like macro Tor dragon thing.
Shh, don't get me excited.
Well, no, the problem is that Roll20 has a tendency of making things bigger than they're supposed to be when I first put them on this map.
Yeah, tokens like to be very big when we first put them in.
Exactly.
Oh God.
Like that.
Exactly.
I don't
Is
know.
that a
That's
cat?
cool though. He's the samurai kitty.
Now, when you are introduced to Nobun, he is standing beside Lady Kuzunoha, and just as you're entering the gate, you see that jellyfish again. She is bowing to both Kuzunoha and Nobun and rushes off.
With a raised brow, Daxon will watch the translucent, what he presumes to be some sort of servant or messenger leave, but he will refrain from commenting.
She is one of the few who had a costume of a different type than everybody else here.
Oh.
Fancier or more restrained?
A different style altogether. No robe. Not like everyone else, more or less.
Ah, probably from somewhere else then.
Likely.
There wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it was a similar, oh hey, it's a robe sort of thing. But it was closer to what Sir Percival had at his villa than the kind that these people wear, which is wrap around with some kind of belt over the waist.
Mm.
Less kimono style, more toga style.
Correct. Both kind of roby, but not of the same way. Now then, the individual who stands besides Kuzunoha is very clearly a Nobun. Nobody else, you think, would ever insist on having honorifics after their name. The armor he's wearing is bright red, lacquered, similar to the individuals who had swords by their sides Nusig saw over with the security building, quote-unquote. He also seems to be having a sword which seems physically too large for him to properly wield. It's not that it's a broadsword, it's just quite long. But then again, the length of the hilt gives you the idea that maybe, just maybe, he can actually swing that thing.
Well, I've seen both athletes lug around some ridiculously huge weapons, so why not?
He'll refrain from questioning for the moment. He will regard it with the, like, kind of usual air that an officer does when he sees someone armed approach, even if they are allowed to carry a weapon.
Who the hell do you think you are coming at me like that?
more that sort of, like, split-second threat analysis, relax a little bit, but still kind of that brief moment of, oh great, I have to deal with someone armed today.
Now then. And these are the ones then, yes? You are correct. Well then, I suppose we should get this over with. I am Nobun. I am the greatest warrior in this realm. It is with deep shame that I come to you asking for your help to resolve the death of Lady Shay. She was one of the best of us. And so, that we might expedite your time here, what questions have you for me?
Just out of character. So the questions we want to ask him are, A, the symbols, and B, any trouble she might have had. And I'm guessing we also want to know where she was in the power structure, right?
If you should so desire to ask that, yeah.
I'm asking the other players out of character, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because I feel we should ask about where she was in the power structure at a minimum, just to rule out the whole, person killed in order to open up a seat thing.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fairly reasonable.
I was gonna say we don't really have to ask him about the symbols, but we might as well. While we're at it.
It might save some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie then. So who wants to ask the questions?
Bugger it. I'll go up and I'll take the power structure question. And then somebody else can pick up one of the other less offensive ones.
Oh, I think it would also be a good idea to ask him about the weapon.
Yeah, so if you want to pick that up.
He claims to be a great warrior, so he should know about weapons.
Daxon will take point on the weapon questioning.
Okay. So, Nobun raises a furry eyebrow at the initial question of the power structure and where she kind of fits into it. But he nods after a moment of consideration. I see. While it is not savory to think one of our own would kill for progress in one's standing, it is a possibility, and as outsiders, I will allow such questioning of our motives. She was a child, yes. Not in the sense of actually physically being a child, mind you, but more in the grander scale of things. Not a member of a pantheon, but divine, as I myself am. Kuzunoha is our chosen mistress. Should she, may it never be, pass, one of her servants is more likely to take her place. However, on that scale, I myself am higher up than Shay Loon. If it was for a place of power or positioning, it would make more sense to remove me, or remove one of my more immediate subordinates, than remove Shay Loon. Her pursuit was not power.
And I appreciate the answer, despite the offensive question. We come from a world where knocking off your superiors for a promotion is not as uncommon as one would like to believe, but your confirmation does at least not rule out the theory that this was done for a power grab.
I understand the ways of the outside world. They disgust me, but I understand them.
All right, and that confirms that this is not a hostile takeover.
Wouldn't count it out yet.
Wouldn't
Well,
count it out yet, but at the same time, it's looking less likely.
Yeah.
Daxon will go ahead and ask, we recovered a weapon at the murder scene. We would like you to take a look at it, if at all possible.
Of course. I know every blade here. Some of them I've made myself.
Did you make this one?
His eyes widen for a moment, and his pupils dilate, and then narrow. You're not sure how intentional all of that was. But it's very clear that this weapon has made him distraught.
Can I make a community perceived communication check to determine how much of that was staged, and how much was just completely biological and earnest?
Go ahead.
I have 2 ranks and a boon in
I'm going to say it's a difficulty of 2.
Okay, so it'd be a D10 or D12, D10 plus 1.
Mm-hmm. You are unable to tell how much of that was him intentionally doing it and how much of that was a gut reaction. It is very obvious, though. Clearly, Kuzunoha is much more reserved than her servant. Nobun, at first, makes a move to pick up the weapon in question, but then raises his hands. I ought not. You are still looking at the weapon and using it for your investigation. Yes?
That is correct. We'll be running a detailed analysis of it.
Then I shall refrain. This was hers. This was Shay Long's. At least one of hers. She had little reason to use it here. A memento from her days outside. It was crafted for her as a gift. You see, this weapon was made for her at the request of Nordrun. And while I may understand and respect his memory as a fellow warrior, he and I had very different opinions on what honor meant. But he had a way of it for himself. That said, he gifted this to her on the day of the birth of their son. She carried it with her often. She dotes upon the boy.
He is currently on his pilgrimage, is that correct?
Pilgrimage. Ha! No pilgrim he. An adventurer at heart. He was always too large for these walls.
Can we back that up a sec there? You said this was made to commemorate her son's birth.
Correct.
Were there any other weapons made for that occasion?
Not weapons, no. A few other gifts were created, yes, but not to mark such an occasion, no.
Well, there goes that idea.
If I may, do you happen to know where she kept this weapon?
If it was not on her person at the time of her attack, it would have been in her personal quarters. Further down in the garden.
Of course, of course.
And on the security camera, we never saw the figure, the intruder, carrying this, did we?
No, we did not.
We should be, since we have the photos, we should be able to figure out if they entered her quarters and retrieved the weapon, or if not, she obviously had it with her.
Yeah.
Based on the video footage described by Rage earlier, I'm going to go ahead and just for now, I'm pretty certain it was on her at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your assumption is correct. If you were to go back and see it again, you'd see that, yes, she did happen to have it on her at the time. But at the time, you weren't sure if it was the same weapon or if it was simply a look-alike. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Interesting.
So then the real question would be, we should go check her quarters to make sure that this is not a replica.
Investigating her quarters in general wouldn't be a bad idea.
No, it wouldn't.
But that would require their permission.
Of
Oh,
course.
you can try. Also, out of curiosity, how much time do we have left?
We got about 20 minutes before I have to call it.
Okay, cool. We have time.
Let's
Um,
try and finish this interview quickly.
Yes. I'm gonna ask Nobun if there have been any quarrels, any threats, any unusual interactions between the victim and any individuals that he is aware of.
Hmm.
And I'm also going to evaluate his response to see if he's being deceptive.
You're gonna need a roll for that.
All right. What should I roll?
It's
Community
communication.
perception.
Mhm.
Okay. So second verse, same as the first.
Yep. This is gonna be a tier 3 though.
Okay, so I'll be rolling a d12, a d8, and +1.
Mhm.
And I accidentally closed roll 20 because the alt button. I have alt as my push to talk.
Same.
Alright, so I'll get you from there. But I will give you his response and you can gauge it afterwards.
Bleh.
Nobun laughs. A foe of Shay Lung? Suicide, I would say, was a more apt decision. While she was no warrior, she is more than capable of defending herself. Whoever took her life was very capable.
Well, you say that, but Nordrum was also physically impressive.
Whoever did this made sure that they had a clear advantage first, in both cases.
They were
Exactly.
ruthless and clever.
Precisely. Nordrum would never have been taken by surprise. He was at times too proud of himself and his abilities, but he did not earn that pride softly nor quietly. Kuzunoha glares at him a little bit, but doesn't say anything. I disliked that, but I also respected it at the same time. And while Shay Lung was in no way a match for Lord Nordrum or myself, she was more than capable of handily taking most people, especially outsiders.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but based on what we're seeing, we do not. This is way too in-depth to be an outsider, or at least one who is not from here.
It was definitely someone that knew the inner workings of this place.
As well as the trappings in mythology.
You say these things, but what do you mean by them? What evidence have you?
Well, for one, this person obviously knew her habits well. From what we could learn, she was in this temple very regularly. Every 10 days, I believe. And
We also... Sorry, go ahead.
And they most likely knew she would have this weapon with her. Also, and I'm sorry, and I'm gonna show him one of the pictures of the symbols. I am sorry to show you this, but they wrote this with her blood. Do you happen to recognize any of these symbols, maybe?
The Tomoe. I wear that myself. And he taps one of the plates on his left hip, and sure enough, that very same symbol is there. It is a symbol of thunder and lightning and storms. It is a warrior's symbol. But these others, I am no scholar. If I heard the name, I might be able to tell you more. but the writing itself, I cannot read.
I was given the name Susano.
Of course. That makes far too much sense. By the way, your toggle gets a little delete.
Oh,
Henry's gotten back to you.
Oh.
please.
I am not available.
And,
Hang on.
okay.
I think it's family aggro.
Also, want to say, why is Henry sending me a message that he's not available?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, want to say, well, sorry, Henry.
No, sorry about that. Interruption.
Okay. Let's just wrap this up.
Quite all right.
Yeah, no, you're good. Henry says that some of the legends associated with the garden and the various mythologies associated there, the big one is about a creature called an orochi, a several-headed snake, not all unlike that of another sort of dragon called a hydra, but this one is specifically a serpent and not a dragon type thing, though it does occupy a similar place in the mythos there.
Are there any known individuals matching that description on Empyrean?
Well, here's the thing. The reason this becomes interesting is a name sounds familiar. In the legend, the person who killed the snake is Susano.
Huh. So we have a delusional dragon slayer who's claiming the names of old dragon slayers.
Nobun says, Susano, he was a storm god of the ancient humans. He was also a mighty warrior. He had honor, but was far too brash, at least according to the things I've read of him. The Tomoe was occasionally used with his name, though that was simply because of his status as a storm god. The Tomoe more symbolizes thunder and lightning, and occasionally balance or unbalance, depending on the direction the balls face, if the information is correct. I remember these as a boy, for the story of Susano's exploits in many battles lit my mind aflame. Also the name of my sword.
very interesting. But you see how the murderer was obviously familiar with this ancient mythology.
Indeed.
And we found similar evidences at the site of Lord Nordrun's death.
So you think they may be the same person, or at least connected?
Aye.
It is very likely.
It is likely that the individual or individuals responsible are part of a group or hold a belief that they are somehow mimicking legends of the past and that will give them power.
Kuzunoha cuts in briefly. I am not so certain that it is a pursuit of power.
Jackson cocks an eyebrow but remains quiet.
Cecily does not remain quiet. She asks, if I may, why do you think so?
Lord Nordrun, for all his faults, tried to be a good father and a good man. My young Nobu may not have liked him. He respected him, as did many here. Such was the way of his life. Not all liked him, but most respected him. Shay Long was in a different situation. She was liked and respected by almost everyone. The only ones who ever ran afoul of her were those who ran afoul of Nodru. She loved him deeply, enough to bear his son, and not merely through some tube somewhere, or to chemically, no, physically, the full term. She gave birth with no medical assistance. She loved Nodru.
As a side note, at the at the words, give birth with no medical assistance, Cecily's eyes go wide and her expression pretty much say, "That is possible?"
Indeed. But that is the level of commitment she had for him, and it was never fully given back. A shame, really.
Yes.
But at the same time, I understand why. So you see, her son was her only true and lasting link to the man she cared most for. It is good, then, that he is not here. His father and his mother are gone from him, and he knows it not. But more importantly, you must ask yourselves, what else might connect them? I do not think it's a place of power. Killing Nordrun does not put you in my good graces. And attempting to remove one of my most loyal and faithful servants will not elevate you in my eyes. Death and betrayal, in that manner, that is not my way.
May not be, however, but with individuals this underhanded, it might be that we're dealing not with a call to political power, but a sense of empowerment, ego.
Lady Kusamago, I apologize if I mispronounced that. I apologize in advance for asking this question, but it is part of our investigation to ask questions like these. Is there anybody on the Empyrean whose way it would be?
Nobun snarls openly and seems to about to yell, but Kuzunoha puts a very calm palm on the back of his shoulder. At ease. It is not normally something we would allow such a question. But these are very trying times, and we must be patient. To answer more properly, there are a few. Might. But some of them are not among us. That wretched ape. Nobun. He speaks of Son Goku. I do not believe this his work. He's mischievous and rude, but he's not a ruthless murderer. Any who have died at his hands died because of their arrogance and knew they could the moment they stood before him. You and I know this perfectly well. He was a personal friend of Shay Long's before he was banished from my realm. He is not banished from the Empyrean, as he is still a citizen here. He has done a few things to offend me and my people. And so until he gives proper appeasement and apology, he may not return home. There may be hard feelings between him and Shay, as this was one of their most core disagreements between the two of them. She could never have imagined a time where someone so close to me would disrespect me so. It was a betrayal, and weighed heavily on her. While I do not believe this to be the work of Son Goku, it is possible. He has always been a sneaky one. And while I would hate to think of it, it may be another member of the Pantheon. There are 3 who are most likely to have done it, or to know who has. As I regret to say, Lord Darksky may have been behind instigating the death of Lord Nordrum. They have never seen eye to eye, and while I doubt he actually would have said as much and asked them to do it, someone may have interpreted his wishes to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And while I don't believe our master engineer, Radadosk, and would have done it himself, someone may have used his knowledge and that of our resident crafter and personal friend, Hephaestus. Hephaestus, he is one of the chief engineers and Radadosk's most loyal child. Hephaestus creates most of the technology we use on a day-to-day basis. He also is responsible for many of the weapons created here. Speaking to Hephaestus might get you what you need to know. And as for the third, I should hate to think he would do such. But the serpent, he is the most wily of us. But he keeps to himself. The only one he speaks to is the Lady Scylla. Scylla might be able to get you what you need to know, and to confirm whether or not it was the serpent or his brother, the spider.
We appreciate your answer, and again, we apologize for having to ask these questions.
It is to be understood. You're outsiders, and therefore rude. You do not know our ways, and so we must be more patient with you. It is not your fault you are not instructed in our methods. But it is good that you know this. It also gives you power. A unique place to ask things and do things that none here might get away with unreprised. Nobun, you will lend them your sword should the time come. My lady, they are here to help us. In part because they are being paid, but in part because I sense goodness in them. I should hope that when all this is over, I might treat you all to tea. At least once.
Jackson looks a little taken aback, but after a moment nods and says, "That would be lovely. Thank you."
And with that, and a polite but very dismissive bow, she strides past all of you. As graceful as ever. Nobun looks at her back for a moment and then looks back to you. My lady has wished it, so shall it be. Should trouble arise, you have but call upon me. I will come as swiftly as I may. If I might suggest, I would go very swiftly to one of those members of the Pantheon she named. It is as good as much from her lips as permission to suggest it.
And in return, we would like to ask something of you.
Oh,
You describe yourself as a formidable warrior, and I imagine you probably know the names of all warriors on the Empyrean, correct?
of course, I know them all. Many I have trained myself, or trained against.
I would suggest you pick the ones you know the most, the ones whom you would absolutely trust with your own life, and potentially increase the security on any vectors on the Empyrean who happen to have a draconic appearance or naming.
There is wisdom in these words.
It's stretching it a bit thin, I know, and honestly, it's probably pushing the limits of what we can do. I'm making an assumption here, but if this is not purely based on the relationship between the two, I want to at least cover those bases.
He has a decent idea. I feel it may be premature or risky to possibly incite a panic. However, if we're able to save any lives and prevent any further deaths, then I would say it would be worth it.
I should think the dragon's more than capable of defending themselves, but clearly something must be done. While I cannot have them specifically protect each and every one of our more dragon-like residents, I can at the least tell them to step up their security. They will listen to me.
I believe this to not be a matter of capability, but more a matter of sheer effort on the part of the killer. This isn't just someone tracking you down in your home. This is almost seems deeply personal, and the attention to detail on the part of the murderer is concerning.
Indeed.
Still, we will have to wait for further analysis to provide any more judgment.
And I think we will end it there for now.
That is, yeah, it is getting late, so probably a good idea.
11
Indeed.
XP.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yay, EXPs!
What would that bring our total up to, out of curiosity?
Should be 246.
Somebody has more XP than I do. I have 242.
So I have
No,
36.
you are correct. You are correct. My mistake. I added a wrong number. Nope.
Oh.
242 is correct.
So I have
242. Yay.
I have 32 XP to spend. Nice.
Yeah.
Yay.
Would we actually have time to spend XP?
Outside of session, yes.
Okay.
But for now, we are done.
All right.
All right. Excellent. Farewell, viewers. Goodbye,
Don't
people of the
die.
internet.
Bye bye, viewers.
Make good choices. Don't fall in.
Put the seat down.